Okay, before we remove the old window from your boat or car or caravan, it's best advisable just to put some data marks on there so you can take some accurate measurements to work out what size window rubber you need. So we'll just get a straight edge, doesn't matter what it is, we're using a piece of wood. The centre line of the window, just put a little mark on your wood there, on the window here, and that side there. So what we can do when we take accurate measurements of the window and the hole you've got in the panel, that will then give us the web thickness of the window rubber that we need. So what we'll do now is we'll take the window out, so just find the end of the filler strip, just pop that out there, and then just start pulling all the way around so that just comes out nice and easily. It just popped out. Next thing to do is just prise, with your glazing tool, just prise your perspex out very carefully out of the rubber. Just careful so you don't damage it. Put it out and it pops out nice and easily. And then pull the rubber off and we're just left with a hole inside of the panel. Right, we're now going to take some measurements from our window and our hole just to check what size gap we have all the way around, which relates to the web thickness of the rubber. So the first thing to do is with your datum line, measure across, centrally, across the line, so we have a width here of 500 millimeters. We then measure again across the same line on your panel work, and that has a dimension of 515 millimeters. So if you subtract one from the other, that gives you 15 millimeters, and then halve that, because you've got a gap, half a gap this side, half a gap that side, which then means we have a gap all the way around the window of 7.5 millimeters. And this then relates to the web thickness of the window rubber that you need to buy. So the next thing we have to do is measure the thickness of the panel and the window. So we're measuring the thickness of the panel, the vernier, and this is coming up at 6 millimeters thick. Then we measured the thickness of the window, and that's coming up at 5 millimeters thick. So that refers to we need a window rubber which is 6 millimeters on one side and 5 millimeters on the other side. Okay, so we now have our dimensions of the panel, which is 6 millimeters, and the actual window, which is 5 millimeters. So we'll cross-reference in our catalogue, the Seals Direct catalogue, for a gap A which is 6 millimeters and a gap B which is 5 millimeters. And we have one here which is a web which is 7 millimeters, which will fit into our 7.5 millimeter gap we have all the way around between the window and the actual panel. The other point to notice is that a bend radius of 100 millimeters, and that refers to the actual radius of the window here. So if that is tighter than 100 millimeters, it then makes it very, very hard to fit the rubber. So the first thing to do is to get your rubber and to start fitting it around the aperture of your boat or car or caravan. Always have the joint at the top, and then just gently fit it onto your panel like so, pulling the rubber out, make sure it's really nice fit, tight fit all the way around. Bang it nice and tight into the corners and go onto the straight length. Nice and tight into there. So when you get to the ends, make sure there's a nice tight compression fit between the ends. Obviously that will stop it shrinking back at a later date. So there we go. go, that's the rubber actually fitted into the panel now. The next thing we're going to do is to fit the perspex in. So we use a glazing tool. First thing to do is use some lubrication on there, and that helps the actual perspex slide in a lot easier. What we're using here is just a bit of fairy liquid and water. It just helps the things sort of glide together. So start with your panel, your window at the bottom. Okay, and push that into the rubber. And then with your glazing tool, just prise the rubber back so that the actual perspex fits into the rubber nice and neatly. Just ease it up both sides, a little bit at a time. What I'm doing is flicking the rubber back over the edge of the perspex. And just go up to the other corner. Gently prising it as you go all the way along. And the perspex is now fitted into the rubber. So the next thing we need to do is fit the filler. It's called the locking strip, and that puts pressure against the actual perspex and the panel and makes it nice and watertight. So again, a little bit of lubrication on this in the slot just helps things slide nice and easily. So just squirt it at the top and that will just run down the side. There we go. So we start with our glazing tool here. It's got a diamond shaped hole and that fits into the actual rubber. So we start with the joint of the filler strip 180 degrees opposite the window rubber. And we put that into the window rubber there. And then the filler strip just pops in there. Then as you move the tool along, it pushes the rubber out and it puts the filler strip, locking strip, into the actual rubber and locks it all together. Just gently push it all the way around as you go. It needs quite a bit of force just to push it round, just to get it in there. get to the end, the filler strip is cut slightly over length. We'll just put that in there, tip it all out. We'll just push the end back, so you get a nice tight compression fit between the ends, and that will just stop the thing shrinking back at a later date and leaving a gap. Okay, and there we go. One window rubber fitted.